join, right?
Yes, sir. He is yet to join. Can we start now, sir? It's already 5 minutes. So
Give me 1 minute because Thomas comes and we can start with Thomas first.
yes, sir. Yeah.
He's going to a glass of water then. Anthony also joined.
Yes, sir. Mr. Anthony also joined now. So
Hi, Antonio. Antonio? Can you hear us, Antonio? Can you hear us, Antonio?
yeah, he needs to unmute, sir. Mr. Anthony, you
Can
need to unmute.
Unmute. Can you unmute?
Yes, I can unmute. Now it should work. Is it okay now?
Yes, it's working now. Perfect.
Sincere apologies. I don't know what happened today. Technology is not on my side, so I had to restart my laptop a couple of times. Apologies for that.
So you have the presentation to upload now later?
Yes.
So we are going live now. We are starting with you, okay?
How do I upload the presentation? Do I share the screen now?
Yeah, share the screen.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay,
Sir,
can you go ahead?
yes, sir. We are live now, sir. I just introduce and hand it over to you, sir. Good afternoon, all. It's our privilege to have Mr. Raji Goyal, sir, who is a session chair today. Mr. Raji Goyal is leading the Ultratech units with as Chief Technical Officer, and he is also a co-chairman of Green Cementech 22. Mr. Raji Goyal is a cement manufacturing expert with more than 3 decades of experience, and he has successful track record in various countries and continents like Asia, Africa, Europe, etc. Thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting to chair this session, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Karan. Good afternoon to all. I take this opportunity to welcome and invite Mr. Antonio Carleo Deblado for this session. Mr. Antonio is the head of climate and energy at Holcim Limited, the global leader in building materials and solutions headquartered in Switzerland. He is responsible for overseeing the group climate and energy strategy in the group sustainability department, monitoring CO2 performance and public disclosure of climate-related information. Antonio coordinates the Holcim's net zero pledge and the verification process of companies' immediate targets with science-based target initiatives. He acts as the company representative to the GCCA and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and represent the Lafarge Holcim in the TCFD Prepare Forum for the construction value chain. He is having 12 years experience. He had the strategic roles at the corporate level as a head of sustainability performance and tools, leading innovative methodologies such as Holcim integrated portfolio profit and loss statements. He has also filled a number of operational role, maintenance, production, project management, and health and safety. With this introduction, I invite Mr. Antonio to share his thoughts. Over to you, Antonio.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. And again, apologies for the technical challenges. I didn't even manage to have a cool background today, but I'll try to do it anyhow. Can you see my screen just to make sure?
Yes.
Is everyone looking at the screen?
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the intro. Again, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm going to give you an overview of Holcim's Net Zero Pledge. Just before, a very quick intro on Holcim. It's in presence with presence in more than 70 countries and more than 2,000 operating sites. Holcim is a world leader in building materials, with sustainability very much at the heart of the strategy and everything we do, and an extremely serious focus into climate and decarbonization. Innovation is the main driver. That's how we are going to get there. You'll see in a second. And we are present in 4 main segments: cement, aggregates production, ready mix in concrete, and solution and products such as roofing, asphalt, and others. Sustainability, as I mentioned, it's a fundamental aspect of the company strategy. We have 4 main areas, focus areas. Climate and energy is going to be the topic of today. We're going to dive in for the next minutes, but we also have a clear plans on circular economy, on nature aspects like biodiversity, water consumption, and people, not only on the employees, but also on the communities where we operate. With no further ado, let's go to the climate section. Net zero future with science-based targets. As a global leader in the industry, this is something that came from within. We have a key role to play to address this climate crisis. And as such, in 2020, Holcim was the first building materials company that signed a business ambition for 1.5 of the United Nations with science-based targets approved by 2030 by the Science Based Targets Initiative. And more recently, we managed to have those long-term targets as well, 2050 targets validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative. With this, we have a very unique setup. We have our own pathway, the whole pathway for near-term and long-term targets validated by SBTi for all the scopes, scope 1, 2, and 3. And I think that's fundamental to cover all the scopes, as you are going to see in a second. This is our footprint, so Holcim's footprint. Me personally, that's the way I think everyone should start knowing what is the baseline. So 75 of the emissions of Holcim today are coming from scope 1 emissions, so emissions that directly happen in our operations. Almost 50% of them actually from the decarbonation of the raw materials, limestone into clinker, right? There's a 5% that is coming from the purchased electricity, scope 2, and then 20% of our footprint is actually scope 3 emissions coming from transportation and also the purchased goods and products that we have to procure in order to be able to manufacture our products and services. So that is why the Holcim and perhaps the industry has a strong focus on scope 1 emissions. It's a no-brainer, as it is not a no-brainer the fact that we have been basically advocating a lot in that sense. So we normally at Holcim we now use these metrics to represent like an overview of our targets. As I mentioned, we have now 2030 targets validated by SBTi, 2050 targets validated by SBTi for all the three scopes, scope 1, 2, and 3. I think the novelty, probably you've seen this for a while, there are two aspects that I would like to highlight. The first one is what it means net zero from an SBTi perspective. It is not real zero, it is an almost net zero target. And I quote how the formal wording works is, we've committed to reduce by 95% scope 1 and 2 intensity per ton of cementitious from a 2018 base year. And then in scope 3, we have committed to reduce absolute scope 3 emissions by 90%. That is what Science Based Target has validated as a net zero target. That's our long-term ambition. But to me personally, what is fundamental is to set up near-term targets that are really in a walking distance, as I like to say. So our management is actually committed to get there. 2050 is really far away. We're going to probably see this from the distance, and we need to have targets today, targets that make us work and have action today. Our 2030 targets is an example of that, but I will even go a little bit beyond just to highlight that the Holcim we take this very seriously, and we have targets in 2022. So there's a yearly target. This year we need to achieve 550 CO2 emissions per ton of cementitious. We closed last year at 553, and this actually giving us the guide to really continue to deploy this decarbonization. That we also have 2025 targets, which are very much aligned with the pathway to zero. And just to highlight that these are fundamental. And something quite important is our 2022 target is it's linked to the compensation of our management bonus. So it's another TCFD aspect that I would like to highlight, how important it is to have compensation schemes linked to CO2 reduction targets. So the key message here is really pathway has to be validated by SBTi, but also having short-term targets will definitely support organizations. At least it happened with us it's a very effective tool. It is not all about setting targets. We also need to know how to get to those. And that is why our journey to net zero is clearly defined by a number of levers, decarbonization actions that we are actually working on. Obviously, within the cement industry, there will be a no-brainer if I mention about the reduction of clinker factor, the increase of alternative fuels. It's been the core of decarbonization of the industry over the last decades. We'll continue to maximize this lever to make it happen. Moving now to Scope 2 emissions, focusing on renewable energy, expanding power purchase agreements, wind, solar farms, even having waste heat recovery systems that help us to reduce electricity consumption from the grid will definitely help us there. The focus on green products, accelerating green solutions. I will show you in a second a little bit more detail. It's going to help us to reduce those content of clinker in the cement. Plants of tomorrow, it's our program to drive more efficient plants, to move from more manual work to automatization in the plants where we operate. Circular economy, we've already mentioned. There will be this new trendy usage of construction demolition waste in the cement and concrete, using those fines from the production of recycled aggregates that now we can incorporate in the cement. And of course, carbon capture, getting ready to scale up those CCUS technologies that are going to be fundamental after 2030 to reach our net zero target. And then there are also all the actions across the value chain in vehicles to attack the Scope 3 that I'm going to show you also in the next few slides. Something that we have also put out there, and I trust is a good example of transparency, is an estimation on the weight of these decarbonization levers that I just mentioned to you. How are they going to affect our decarbonization journey towards 2050? So you can see that by 2030, we're going to mainly focus on those circular economy activities that I mentioned, reduction of clinker factor, increase of alternative fuels. But as of 2030, we really need to start expanding and scaling up CCUS and other novel technologies that will be fundamental. Talking about hydrogen, talking about electrification of kilns. We are testing all those, but important is to have a clear pathway towards the end and have a solid monitoring progress towards that with intermediate targets. Eventually, what I like the most about our work in the area of sustainability is to being able to transform the way we build. And that is why it's all these aspects that I just mentioned summarizes in the fact that we're changing our product portfolio. We have CO2 now embedded in a number of ways in our product range. So we have low carbon products such as our EcoPact concrete or EcoPlanet cement, are basically low carbon compared to local alternative cements and concrete. But we also have products like Agneo, recycled aggregates, or Susteno. This is the cement that I was mentioning that uses fines for construction demolition waste, and all the very high efficient products that will help our customers to build more with less, using less volumes, high performance. Also very important when it comes to circularity concepts in terms of design. And last but not least, also, let's not forget about the carbon footprint of buildings during the use. So also having a proper roofing isolation going to be fundamental for those products. And CCUS, you've seen in the previous graph how fundamental this technology is going to be for our industry in the future. So at Holcim, we're preparing the future today. We're getting ready with carbon capture with more than 30 projects, 7 of which are already public. You can see in the slides. And our strategy is very simple. We know the challenges. We acknowledge there are a number of technologies out there. We're testing as many as we can to be able to find the right one so we can scale up. We have a clear commitment to reach one net zero plant by 2030. hopefully being the example for the others to scale up in the years to come. Of course, this is a very ambitious pathway, as you have seen, and we're going to need some enablers that we all need to advocate for. Carbon pricing mechanisms are fundamental. Having a level playing field in those regions where cap and trade systems are in place, it's key. We're advocating for that. Also, how important it's going to be that the market evolves towards consumption of low carbon products. So norms, standards will need to operate to evolve to facilitate that transition. With regards to the carbon capture, we talk about the tests that we basically can do in plants. Eventually, you'll need an ecosystem. You will need to do something with that CO2 once it's captured. So infrastructure networks to connect those flows of material are going to be fundamental, as well as the recognition of the carbon removals, right? There's a difference between carbon storage and utilization that must be recognized in order to those incentives be in place for companies to pursue. And last but not least is energy. Competitive renewable energy must be in place so we can run this decarbonization from thermal to electricity as we progress. I'm already in almost at the end of the presentation, and I didn't want to leave this without mentioning the importance of the Scope 3 emissions. I think historically at Holcim, maybe also in the cement industry, we've been focused for obvious reasons, as I mentioned before, on the Scope 1 emissions, but the Scope 3 emissions is going to be fundamental as well moving forward for our customers, and we need to understand. So at Holcim, we have basically start measuring the categories within the most material categories within the Scope 3 emissions, upstream and downstream. Downstream being logistics as the largest source of the Scope 3 emissions, and upstream having a bit of a battle between the emissions from cradle to gate of the fuels that we have to pursue to run our operations, but also from the clinker and cement that we purchase in those plants where we don't actually have clinker lines and we need to import. Those are the most or the largest areas of Scope 3, and for those are the ones that I mentioned before. We have set up 2030 targets validated by the Science Based Targets initiative. Lastly, with this, I will conclude my presentation. Raju, how important it is to have this narrative and these ambitions embedded in the company strategy. We have recently launched our new 2025 strategy, Accelerating Green Growth, in which we've actually have come up with 8 new targets, sustainability targets by 2025, including obviously those related to CO2. That's to support a little bit what I mentioned before on how important it is to have short-term targets that our management today can pursue to get us there. With this, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I will be ready for questions, if any, or you can contact before or after in case of any follow-up needed. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, you are muted, sir.
Sorry for this play with this technology. So thank you very much, Mr. Antonio. Very well laid out and very well prepared the roadmap for the net zero for Holcim group level. And I really appreciate that what you mentioned, that I fully agree with that. It's a carbon pricing, capturing and finding the alternative or renewable energy sources, and providing the complete solution for this new product, which is the low carbon products, will be the definitely road to go. And very importantly, you mentioned that this Scope 3, because yes, we're right, in the industry we focus on the Scope 1 and Scope 2 more on that side, but definitely Scope 3 is becoming a more important, more focus for the whole industry to look into that, to reduce our carbon footprints. And as you rightly said, upstream and downstream also need to be looked into that to make sure that we are capturing all the end-to-end whole our value chain into the process. And I'm impressed with the this EcoPet you said, concrete, which is a very important part, because concrete is the second largest commodity after the water which is used, and definitely we have to look into the how we can do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Antonio, for sharing your thoughts and your plans for the achieving the net zero objectives. And we'll come to the question answer after the final presentation from the Thomas. Then we come back to the question answer. So can you hold on that time?
Thank you very much, Raj. Appreciate it. Thanks.
So guys, let's move to our next speaker, Mr. Thomas Guloy, and he is the Chief Executive Officer for GCCA. Mr. Thomas joined GCCA from Holcim, bringing 20 years of sustainability experience with a key focus on circularity and the industrial ecology in both operation and functional role. Most recently, he led the development of Holcim decarbonization program and its circular business, which is called the GeoCycle, across EMEA region, and played a leading role in the development of the various strategic initiatives, business development activities, organizational redesign, and industrial rationalization programs. Mr. Thomas also also led the number of positions across the various industries, including the chairman of EcoPro, co-chair for Working Group B, Circular Economy and the Processes at Sambero, former active member of UEPG, and founder of the Bulgarian Aggregate Producers Associations. With this impressive profile, Thomas, I'll really request you to share your thought, not only from the GCC point of view, as the industry also, please. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Raju. I'm delighted to be here with you. It's really a pleasure to talk, especially after Antonio, that you have understood is a former colleague of mine, good colleague, and to illustrate actually how the leadership of these cement companies that are in the forefront of the decarbonization can illustrate and can work at global level. So I'm now the CEO of GCCA, and indeed my role here is to introduce you to the possibility to achieve net zero at global level. So we have developed this roadmap, which I'm going to present to you in a second, which shows how is possible to get to net zero at global level. First, a couple of words on GCCA itself. So as you said, it's the Global Cement and Concrete Association. We insist on concrete. I mean, things happen also in concrete. Association is a CEO-led organization, so we have basically company members. CEOs are part of our members, and this is important for the commitment because the commitment there is made by the key decision maker, and there is leadership in everything we are doing, on leadership on this net zero journey. But we also cover the National Cement Association, and this is also very important. We have a very wide coverage of national association from basically west to east, south to north. This is important, especially at the time to accelerate the net zero discussion, and I'll come back on this specifically at the end of the discussion. So altogether, GCCA covers about 80% of the global cement industry outside China. And we do have also some key Chinese manufacturers, such as CNBM in particular. On its own, it's 500 million tons of cement every year. So that's considerable, and it's a privilege to have them as part of our members. The mission of GCCA is very much to accompany the industry, the sector, through the sustainability journey and through the net zero transition. So you see, we have actually this concrete future vision to build this net zero world and really to give a bright, resilient, and sustainable concrete future for our industry. And that's what we are aiming at. So maybe a couple of words on concrete. I mean, you all know how concrete is important, but I like to remind the specificities of concrete, because very often we tag concrete, cement on the 7% of global CO2. But in reality, why? It's because concrete is the backbone of the modern society we live in, right? Concrete makes basically everything around us. It's the infrastructure, it's our housing, and we know that everybody wants to have a roof on the head or on some floor on the feet. I would say here we are victim of the success of the material. And it's not that the material is bad in itself. On the contrary, it brings a lot of benefits. But because concrete is important, and because concrete will continue to be important in the future, we need to bring to the world a net zero concrete. And that's what we are doing here with this roadmap. So in a way, we are custodian to that material as the industry, and we need to make sure that everything that Antonio explained is actually translated and worked over all across the world around the industry. So while doing the roadmap, and I like to start with that, we actually had recognitions and acknowledgement from the United Nations, Secretary General Mr. Gutierrez, and he acknowledged the quality and the essential and the relevance of doing such exercise, such roadmap, but also being conscious that the material is there to stay, and that 3/4 of the infrastructure that will exist in 2050 is yet to be built. So it's really important that there is really a strong need to development, and we need to give a net zero world, a net zero concrete to the world. So what is the roadmap about? The global roadmap is really a net zero commitment in line with the Paris Agreement, the 1.5-degree scenario, as similar to what Antonio remarked earlier. It is a decisive moment for the industry in the sense that the commitment made by the CEOs around the world is really a big one. You can refer to our website. You will see a little video with the commitment of every CEOs from the companies making that commitment. It's 200 people working around 9 different regions of the world, explaining and discussing, challenging themselves on how we can make this possible, right? And we demonstrate that it is possible, and that's what it is about. So, as a matter of fact, we are not starting the journey as it stands still. There was some improvement over the years, and you see here from 1990, that's the reference point here, the quantity of CO2 was abated from today's 2020, let's put it like this, by 20%, right? So there are solutions, there are means, and there were things done in various regions, in various companies, which needs to be learned, developed, and scaled up. Now, of course, the matter is about to do more on to accelerate. And we have this famous decade to deliver, this decade for actions from the 20s to the 30s, where all these known technologies needs to be really deployed, where you need to have the regulatory context available and in place to make that happen, and to be ready also to deploy new technologies as of 2030. And that's the carbon capture in great part, but not only, as it was shown in the previous presentation. So if we look at the global level, and that's what we basically can see on these are the different levels. So usually to make them simple, I group them in buckets. So we have first what we call the efficiency. That's the green ones. The efficiencies in concrete and in the way the concrete is used. So there it's about the way we build. Can we change the way we build? Can we actually, maybe make a little bit more columns on to have them a little bit closer so that we have a little bit less concrete to support? Can we change the design? We talk about 3D printing, things like this. So these are all the elements in the construction that will reduce and that will help to be a bit more frugal with the use of the material. We can also put, as we put less concrete in construction, we can put less cement in concrete and certainly less clinker in cement. So these are the different elements, and we need to adapt that to the modern world. The second part is the circularity. Circularity is fundamental, and there we have a big experience of circularity. For me, cement and concrete is probably at the same level of circularity potential as we can imagine with steel and glass. We have to work more and more on that, and there are a lot of initiatives across the world. We are all aware of the use of waste for energy, right? The use of cement kiln as waste solution, and this transfer into energy. We know also about the use of alternative raw material coming from waste. We are also aware of the circularity with the steel sector in particular, or with the energy sector with the fly ash. But we are also developing more and more solutions around use of construction demolition waste. And this is a huge opportunity for the industry, not only to decarbonize, but also to have additional profit and additional revenues from the development. Now, the big part is obviously the innovation. And I put innovation in two fronts. First is the innovation in product, right? And in that sense, it's the reduction of the clinker factor in the product. So most of the members today on you had the example of the Eco Pact or Eco in the previous presentation. We also have members like EcoCrit to give a competition from Heidelberg. So we have most of our members are actually putting on the market today solutions, material, be it on ready mix or on concrete, which present a significant reduction in the footprint by 30 to 50%. And this is out of innovation, out of development. There is also the need to find some new supplementary cementitious material. And we have the example of the calcine clay. We have more and more projects on that. So this is one thing that is being developed as well. And one thing that is also reducing significantly the footprint of the material. Now, of course, the big part of this innovation is the carbon capture use and store. And in fact, as a matter of fact, from the day that presentation that roadmap was done in early October, and now 6 months later, we have seen a tremendous acceleration of communication, of development, of launch of these projects. So whereas some people might have been a little bit skeptical some 6 months ago, back then, we really have now a strong commitment, and we see the huge wave on the huge stream on these CCUS technologies. Antonio demonstrated some example, and I will come back on that in 1 second. Last but not least, we have, of course, to consider the effect of the recarbonation. I mean, this is just reflecting on the natural sink, CO2 sink that is the clinker on the cement, on the potentialization of it, and of course, the need to have decarbonized electricity all over, which is, of course, on the energy side. So with that, we are coming to a reduction, and we have this net zero roadmap as we presented here. So how do we make that happen? First, important on the decade. The numbers you see here is the objectives that we have globally, the sector has globally on the next 10 years, so actually 8 years left. 25% reduction on concrete, 20% of cement. This is 5 billion tons of CO2 over the period. 5 billion tons of CO2 over the period. That's really huge, and that's really available and feasible with all the technologies that are expressed earlier. It's a question of mobilization, making it happen, developing, etc. We also have this commitment on the CCUS, so the technology needs to be proven. We said it. We have a lot of projects, commercial scale projects, and you see 10 plants. At the light of the previous presentation on the recent communication term number, I'm very confident with this 10. Maybe we can actually upgrade the number and have more. You see here, this was a few months down the line, 30 projects that are basically working on developing over. And we know that in many cases, this project will be conducted, will be made. Some of them have actually received some international financing from European Union. They have the support also from Americas, etc., etc. And this is a technology that is being developed. We are also in discussion to work on the supply chain of the carbon. So what happened after you have captured? So the use on store, and I come back to that in 1 second. Obviously, the big game on the deployment of these technologies will be between 2030 and 2050 on the traditional levels, but also on the deployment of CCUS. Just to give one number, between 2030 and 2050, this deployment is equivalent to putting in practice 1 plant per week of 1.2 million tons of CO2 capture every week. So that's really something that needs to be done over the next 10 years, from as of 2030 to 2050. But the preparation of this program, this preparation of the plan, the legislative arrangement, the development of the technologies need to take place in this decade, in the current decade, and that's fundamental. Innovation. GCCA, one of the prime missions of GCCA is to develop innovation. We have 2 legs for that, just to illustrate this. First one is this global research network, where we participate with 35 companies across the world on 40 academics, some of them from India. And this is really fundamental. It's all about researching new material, all dedicated to net zero on carbon reduction technologies. And this is something that is happening, really great initiative. The second part is what we have this open innovation. So this is basically a classical startup accelerator where we make industry meet startup, meet new technologies, and we make them talk together so that these technologies are quickly available to the sector to decarbonize. So we don't have time to discuss on different things. We are really making. So we just launched the six. We just announced the 6 startups that are coming from the first round this year. There is another 11 in discussion on top of that out of the round of this year, and we will have an open innovation round every year. So I invite you to communicate and to take contact with us to candidate, and if you have startups that knows that can be meaningful, we will have this every 12 months, every 18 months, we'll have such a loop. Now, how do we make that happen? And I was earlier talking about deploying the technology. We need to discuss and we need to work in partnership. The cement industry alone cannot just develop everything on its own. This is not possible. Innovation, I mentioned before, but fundamentally, we are part, and GCC is leading the discussion with top international players. So we really literally sit at the top table of discussion. We are a Race to Zero Accelerator. So this is the United Nations initiative. We are the first sectorial actually association globally that is a net zero accelerator in the heavy industry, and it's our pride. We are part of the First Mover Coalition. We are very in good discussion on very intensive discussion with all the United Nations in general. We have some initiative with World Economic Forum and with this Mission Possible partnership. On something important there is the CCUS. So we are also a partnership with the Clean Energy Ministerial CCUS to move forward with the discussion on CCUS. I advance policy. Policy is a fundamental element of transformation. So this is also something that we are discussing. You see here some of our policy asks. Most important are around carbon pricing and carbon leakage, the demand signals, the procurement signals, the green procurement. I mean, the states are responsible for up to 60% of the cement concrete demand, so they can guide really the nature of the cement and concrete that is being put into the infrastructure. Support on innovation, enabling circularity. These are other elements. How do we make that happen? We have launched in the MENA Climate Week in March, the so-called Net Zero Accelerator. So this is basically essentially a call to all national cement association on all countries to partner with us and to develop a local roadmap. Some already have, but it's really about making sure that we have consistently revised all these decarbonization levels. And for each of them, we have identified the potential in terms of carbon savings in 2030, in 2050, the policy blocks on the change of policy that would spur and help the development of these technologies, of these solutions, and also the projects inside the industry that will help to lead this development. So it's really concrete. It's about what do we do specifically to get the things on the ground. So this is one of the results. We have this roadmap, and we take this roadmap, and we have then this policy agenda where we actually help with the support of United Nations, the discussion at local level with authorities to make sure that our argumentation on that there is trust between the local industries and the government. That's very important. We also want this to be led by CEOs. It's fundamental that the CEOs take responsibility in that. My last slide, action. Action is fundamental. Today, we are in the action. We say we have made a global commitment, but this global commitment is nothing if you don't have local actions. And here we gave illustrations across our members of 16 very good initiatives. We have more. We just illustrated. It would be too small. We cannot have everybody. But very concrete things that are happening today on the market, on the countries to develop and to push green development. So this is something that is happening. Concrete Future is really in motion, and we are really calling everyone to work with us and to make sure that this is really transforming into a global trend and that we are making this net zero happening in 2030 and in 2050. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Thomas, for the wonderful presentation. I know that is very difficult to summarize in the few slides your ambitions and your requirement for the global, but you very well summarized that. and I fully agree that GCC role will be to driving this net zero journey will be very important for all of us, because a lot of technology, a lot of new product and new things will be required, which may not be alone industry, but if all the industry come together, can do the lot of work together and do the piloting and searching, and lot of like approaches can be adopted. I really like the word you call the net zero concrete. This is the one of the new word I learned today, and definitely I think this word will be the new word will be the for our industry also. So guys, note down this net zero concrete, which Thomas has given the name. And then I think this roadmap is a very, very important, because roadmap brings, as Mr. Antonio also mentioned the beginning of that, because they have the company wide, and you have put up a roadmap for the whole global. And I think each industry and each company from the who are the members there, they can take this and build there as per their own requirement, own geography, as well as own size of the company and things, which will be very, very important. And this gives a very big, like a clear vision where we need to focus on that side. As you mentioned, the circular economy, which is a very important part of that. Yes, the demolishing waste and other materials are getting very attractive, not only for profitability point of view, but again coming back to the our uh, ambition for the net zero. This will be recycling the all materials what is available in the different industries or within the industries will be definitely help us to go there. And innovation part and product, I think I fully agree that product and the alternative SCMs, supplementary system, will be the new focus for the whole world, because the reliability or availability of the fly ash slag and things may not be very much available in coming future, the way we are working for the green energy and green initiatives. And CCS and CCU will be definitely one of the breakthrough in our whole process. As we always said that, because industry has achieved so much and so much things has been done, the incremental things may not be enough to achieve our objective. So definitely a step change or breakthrough will be required, and I'm sure the CCS and CCU will be the one of the next way of doing the managing our CO2 footprint. He also mentioned that about 30 projects in the worldwide is happening, which is very interesting to see that in a short period of time you managed to bring this all the world, everybody on the world map, to look into 30 projects. So this will be good learning for all the industries. And I can say that innovation things, which is a 6 startup, and I'm fortunate that I'm the part of this whole process in that on the GCCA from the Ultratech thing. So we are also participating in number of startups, as you know. And definitely, I think these startups are going to play the very important role, as I mentioned in my opening speech today morning. As we have seen the startups in the last decade towards the fintech, e-commerce and things, but very impressive to see the last 2.5 years or 3 years, the startups are working towards the industry side also. This is a big shift, and definitely this is going to be a game changer for industry, which is hard to abate, because we are coming to hard to abate kind of industry, and the startups and the new technologies developments will definitely help us to achieve our net zero goal, which we have committed for 2050, 2030, 2017, whatever the number, because each country and each people have taken the different timelines. So thank you very much, Thomas, for enlightening us for these initiatives. And it's always a pleasure to hear you on the different platforms and meeting you in different meetings. And thank you very much for that. And now, Mr. Kanan, do you have some questions?
Yes, sir. There are just two questions,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, please.
There is any pilots happening on kiln electrification also under the wholesome different pilots they have shown, but anything happening on kiln electrification? That is question one, sir.
Very good question.
Thanks for,
Antonio, you can take
question.
it.
I guess that's for me. Thanks.
Of course.
We are definitely exploring this initiative, this technology, as I mentioned, with a number of others. But it's something not yet advanced to communicate upon, right? So that's all I can say. It's definitely one of the aspects we are testing. There are extremely positive things around it. Obviously, removing all the thermal emissions from the combustion of fuels. On the other side, you still have the process emissions, which makes which makes a question mark when it comes to sort of do a trade-off between CCUS capturing basically process and combustion versus electrification. Perhaps a combination of both in the future. That's the type of things we are definitely now trying to understand better in all the pilots.
Thanks you, Antonio. Yes, Kanan, you have a second question?
The other one is on, sir, 6% on the roadmap has been shown under the recarbonization that the GCCA targets. So any scientific methods has been established for understanding this recarbonization levels? That is a question, sir. These two are there.
Thomas, I think this is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there are scientific evidence. Actually, the recarbonation was mentioned and cited in the last IPCC report. It's university-based. There was really some research done around that. It's IVL, as far as I remember, the name of the university. We are working on that as well. We want to make sure, that this is well understood, that there is no shortcuts. I mean, it's not. It's important that we really are sound and robust on the way we consider this recarbonization. So that's scientific, certainly, and it is proven, and it is mentioned in the IPCC report as part of the matrix.
Thanks, Thomas. Any other questions, Kanan?
No, sir, that's all.
Okay, if no question, then I have a question for the Thomas. Thomas, we talk about this CCS, carbon sequestration and storage. How far you see that? Because it's, as you know, that a lot of projects and pilot things are happening. Do you see what the timelines will be for commercialization of this technology?
Listen, I can refer to the latest development of our members. We are essentially bound by the members on there. I would say we have some of the front runners really on that technology. I think I'm very confident, and you see, we say we will have 10 full commercial and industrial scale deployed project by 2030, and we are very confident we will have it. We have today this list of 30 projects, but there are in fact many more. I can refer to Holcim here that announced on its own having 30 projects in preparation or in work. There was also the Capital Market Day of Heidelberg yesterday, the day before, actually on 24th, and they presented some really significant project to come live with the deadline of 2026, 2024, 2028. So this technology is really in maturation. Every members have pilots. As much as I know, I'm trying and working on collecting a global number, and I hope I will have that soon to communicate to everybody. But just to show the extent of really the innovation step that is happening. For me, it's really important. As you see, it's 30% of our decarbonization potential, but it's also a huge potential. And we are the industry that will make this decarbonization story, or this carbon capture, use and store story, make possible, because we are in size, in volume, the one that is using most of that technology. So as soon as we will have a critical mass. We will do the break even on our own, if you want, on that technology. So that's why people are so much interested in working with us. We have cooperation with, in particular, OGCI, the Oil and Gas Global Association. We're exchanging with them intensively over the last month to understand, and to come with some common project hubs where we will build this technology and we will focus. So that's to be coming. I'm not making any teaser or whatever or spoiler, but this technology really has big momentum, and it is about to be really concrete.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I think so with the support of all the GCC initiatives, I'm sure that this piloting and making the commercialization can be faster. I believe that one here. So Antonio, I have the one or two questions for you also on that. As you mentioned in your 4 blocks strategy there, you mentioned the renewable energies and the low carbon products, right? So these are 2 parts you mentioned that which is really attract my attention, because I'm working towards on that side also. So when you say the low, like renewable energies, what are the focus areas? What kind of energies you are focusing on?
I think when it comes to energy, we obviously need to look at both thermal and electrical energy. Obviously, and I would refer to Thomas' previous experience in geocycle in the past, but obviously alternative fuels, it's a key lever of the industry. It's actually a fantastic story of the power of circularity from cement manufacturing process, right? Able to co-process waste that cannot be handled in a more efficient way from other industries and co-processing our kilns. Obviously, within that sort of waste streams of alternative fuels, you have content of biomass, which will obviously bring the gross emissions down, and it's obviously an extremely important aspect for Holcim and I guess for all the members of the GCCA as well. So I guess thermal is a no-brainer, all right? We've all been working towards that goal. We see in the Holcim ecosystem of countries where we operate, we see different levels of maturity of AFR usage depending on the region. It is very much also dependent on regulations. Europe, the thermal substitution rates with AFR are reaching a really high level rates, whereas in other regions we're struggling to bring that number up, but pushing also internally. That's why it's so important what Thomas was saying about policies and push on norms and regulations. And then is the sort of less prominent energy source, which is electrical. I guess in India, that's also a topic in itself, because grid is sometimes not just stable. It's also probably depending on the region, it could be depending on coal power generation. So decarbonizing the electricity, the scope 2 emissions, the purchased electricity needed to run the operations, also extremely important. And more important will come when CCUS becomes more prominent, because remember that eventually what will happen is there will be a shift between the thermal consumption to electrical consumption. CCUS facilities will actually be powered with electricity. We will need renewable electricity powered sources to power them. And that's what's so fundamental when I was talking about the enablers that we advocate on those. And what are we personally doing? I mean, no-brainer waste heat recovery systems. In my view, that's my view, Raju. Plant of tomorrow waste recovery is a no-brainer. You have to have it. You will basically recycle the energy that is actually produced in the kiln to produce electricity, reducing your dependency from the grid. But now there is all these sort of landscape of power purchase agreements. So energy providers also bringing that opportunity to the companies. So cement plants normally have quite of a land because it's needed for our quarries, land that we can use to build wind farms, solar farms, partnerships with energy suppliers that will actually help us sort of decarbonize the electricity we consume. I think it would be fantastic if everyone is trying sort of to push in that direction. As Thomas was saying, eventually as CCUS is getting momentum, electricity it's going to be more prominent in our roadmaps.
Thanks, Antonio. I just cannot stop my curiosity for asking one more question to you, because this what is about this what lot of buzz is coming about the hydrogen energy and things. So what do you think about that, the possibility or near future, what potential of this hydrogen energy will be?
Hydrogen is super trendy right now. It's one of the trendy topics, not within cement, but across industries.
Of course, yes.
We're definitely exploring that option as well. Two angles at Holcim are now being discussed. One is sort of to compete directly with the biomass alternative fuels as a fuel in the kilns. That's one avenue that hydrogen can help us to decarbonize. But another one more tangible today and prominent is on vehicles. And now I refer back to my sort of pitch about how important it is to cover the three scopes. We tend to think about scope 1 emissions, but all the trucks that move our products, those I mean, hydrogen vehicles are already in place for years, right? Should the industry can we move towards having sort of fleets run by hydrogen or low carbon fuels? So our logistics, the logistic of cement and concrete, how important is concrete track? So iconic. These are the two main avenues I can see today on hydrogen.
Thanks,
Maybe
Antonio.
Raju, a word from hydrogen from my side, because I mean,
Yes, I was coming to you. Yes, please, because you read my mind.
Because hydrogen is often opposed or presented as the solution. When we travel around the world, we discuss with the Ministry of Environment, and when we talk about green on future, net zero future, they will say, oh, I have an hydrogen project. And I have a bit of an issue with that, because I would like them to say, I have a CCUS project, right? And in fact, we are busy working on what is the total cost of ownership of 1 ton of CO2 saved through CCUS versus hydrogen. And I just want to give you a few metrics, because people don't have that in mind. First, you need to have green hydrogen, right? Because in most of the case, hydrogen is not green today. Now, what is the cost if you take the cost of hydrogen for energy in gigajoule? So in Europe, the hydrogen guys have said we will come with an hydrogen that will go from 10 euro per kilo, to 2 euro per kilo, green hydrogen, from 10 euro per kilo to 2 euro per kilo. How much does it make in hydrogen, in gigajoule? 2 euro per kilo equals something like 10, 11 euro per gigajoule, right?
Wow.
So, I mean, that's green hydrogen. So by the time we substitute in a kiln at equivalent cost the fuel with hydrogen, it will take a little bit of time, in my view. And we need to keep in mind this opportunities on this how much energy, how much cost, etc., because ultimately, if you compare it, CCUS is probably a much better solution for us, because anyway we have to solve the process emissions, right? And we will need hydrogen probably more into the use, when we will want to use the carbon or things like this, okay? So I'm not sure hydrogen is really the solution to replace fuel for me. First of all, it's very expensive. It's expensive today even more, because you don't have hydrogen at 2 euro per kilo in reality. It seems much more expensive than that. And second, I think we have to explain people, look, for us, the solution is really carbon capture. That's the good solution. And I'll come back and I'll give you the number of what's the total cost of ownership when you compare the carbon removal with the two solutions.
Sure. So Thomas, wonderful. I think thanks, Antonio, for this wonderful insight of you given to me. Thomas, I have one more related question what you said, because what I see, what I feel right now in this current scenarios, the capturing the CO2 from the cement plant is a quite significantly advanced technology. And I think people can capture it, can do this. But what happened the downstream of this? After capturing, what are the potentials and what are the things? Because I feel that is one of the things or puzzle for this whole missing part of this whole puzzle. What should be the utilization part should be there, because capturing is taking the, as you rightly mentioned that, but within a 2 or 3, 4 years time or 5 years time, the capturing technology will be commercialized. But what after the capturing? What after that? What happened to this CO2?
Yeah, I was mentioning. Thank you for the question. It's actually very useful and very important. This is obviously a whole new territory on also opportunities. I mean, we have there a new industry that will be developed, a new industrial solutions that will be developed in the sense of what we do with the carbon when it is captured. For that, we are actually in discussion with these two associations. First, this same CCUS, Clean Energy Ministerial CCUS, which is at global level under the International Energy Agency, and also in partnership with United Nations. And these are the 13 governments that are the most advanced on the US technology. So it's really about what we do, how it works, etc. And we're also discussing with OGCI, which is the Oil and Gas Association, the equivalent of what GCCA is for the oil and gas. And we are discussing on how we can actually push forward the downstream aspect. And in fact, what we are considering is the development of these hubs, these global hubs, which have been identified. Actually, the OGCI have made a wonderful work. There is actually a website that you can consult, where you see from OGCI, where you can consult all the hubs around the planet. So they have put that publicly. And you see how they grouped heavy emitters, cement plants, steel plants, aluminium with energy, and fertilizer, and also the potential of where you can store. And they have a tremendous availability of knowledge on how to store, be it in former oil field, but also in aquifers area. So you put the things 2,000 meters down, 2 kilometers down, and basically it stays. And when it's there, it's actually solidified with the time, right? It becomes limestone, right? And it's really interesting. So for me, that's something that is also happening. We will actually present. We have a CEO gathering in June in Atlanta with all the sector, and we'll present them some studies done by BCG, Boston Consulting Group, showing and characterizing exactly precisely that. What is there? How much does it cost? Transport and store, and what could be the development of these as solutions? How could we develop jointly, oil and gas industry with cement industry, with other industries, these solutions? And this will go much faster than what we believe. Much faster than, and it's cheaper also than what we believe. To give you a scale effect, I mean, there are many of them that are below $50 transport on store. $50 below transport on store.
Wow, very good. So this is very promising and very encouraging what you said, Thomas. I think this will solve a lot of problem of lot of the puzzle of this whole what happens with the capturing and things. This will definitely, because industry is ready to adopt these technologies now. I think they are very much looking forward to commercialization of these technologies and use them to get this net zero targets and ambitions. I think most of the companies, large companies or small companies, they are very much looking forward to these technologies, which can be adopted very quickly, and multiple things can be solved. As you say, that this like a step change or breakthrough will be in our cement industry can be. Thomas, I cannot stop things. What I will ask one more question to you, if you allow me, because very interesting talking to you and Antonio. So my last question of this session will be, Thomas, as you see that GCC are working the worldwide and the whole globe you are covering on you. I saw that almost 80% of the production of this whole on earth of the cement is member of the GCCA. So do you see that how this each country regulations and each country different laws and different limits and different things are there to adopt these technologies or things? Do you see that any challenges there, and what are the GCCA role will be to enable this all the legal and kind of a framework, which is each country has a different because each country maturity and development are very different level. So what the role will be the GCCA see there to make everybody on the one platform and put the full support the legal, and what are the requirement is there to adopt the technologies?
This is really the core of the game, the core of the battle today. As I was explaining earlier, I mean, we just launched this Net Zero Accelerator, and this is really about having and enabling that discussion that you mentioned. We need to have really first our homework done as industrials, knowing where do we want to invest, what are the levels on how you're going to implement these levels in the respective countries, and also what are the legal difficulties that we have that we are facing. And then we need to take that on to discuss in full trust with the government, and to ask their help on how do we accelerate the discussion. We have to demonstrate, we have to tell them we are ready to invest. We have people, the world is ready to invest behind us. There are a lot of people behind us willing to make things happen, being in innovation, being also in real business, okay? And we have to have that discussions. And for that, we have made and we have built this partnership with the United Nations, with the high-level climate champions in particular, to actually help us to say, guys, look, listen to these people. They are not just, just not want to defend an old dying business. They are investing into their future. They are presenting concrete future solutions to make it happen. And we need to take that on to ask the government to make the talk. 2 examples. Norms. We have countries where just SEM1 is authorized as a construction material. You cannot activate any clinker factor reduction program because of the norms. we need to accelerate the discussion. In Europe, 7 years. It took 7 years to change the norm, right? We don't have 7 years, right?
Yes, correct.
Second example, CCUS. In some countries, storage or the whole discussion on carbon storage is just forbidden. So we need to change the mentalities and to explain that the things are different, right? And to explain and to show all the studies that have been done all over the world, etc. And it's our role to gather, and we have actually these working groups on. We will discuss policy examples, and we will be soon, after we have done the first roadmap, etc., able to show what is happening where, on what regulation were virtuous in which geography. Talking about circularity, talking about carbon capture, etc., etc. So not all legislation needs to be equal, but there are some things that worked well in Thailand, in Egypt, in Latin America, in Europe, etc. And that this knowledge we have, and it's our role to disseminate it with the local cement association. We will not have the resource to do everywhere at the same time. So it's really with the local cement association and to help the local cement association to have this discussion, this dialogue with the government.
Thank you,
Can
Thomas.
I compliment?
Yes, please.
Sorry, Tom. I mean, I would just like to add a tone of also
Sure.
sort of emotional as well. I think what happens is a little bit also. I mean, sometimes we tend to think, oh, this is a European thing that's going to happen in Europe. I think it's important to not forget that cement as an industry is responsible from a number of studies from around 7% of global CO2 emissions. That number is going to stay, and so the focus of the citizens of the planet. I mean, that's not going to go away. Investors, there are a number of stakeholders apart from the regulators' norm that are always going to be sort of looking at what we do, and that's why it's so fundamental the word that Thomas is explaining on how, as an industry, we need to really get together and replicate very fast as innovation is actually evolving. And I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, because normally that's what happened with innovations. Now, when they are actually working and in place, everyone adopts them. So I think that's the future, and I think that's what everyone living nearby a cement plant in the future would actually like to see. I just wanted to conclude with that one.
Oh, thanks, Antonio. Wonderful things. And when you talk about the emotional, I think I'm also very emotionally connected for this session, because after spending 20 years in Holcim in different part of the world, so I'm also connecting emotionally. Yes, Thomas, you want to say something?
Raju, yeah. One word important in what Antonio said. It is not a Western discussion. The role of India, the role of China, the role of the global South in this discussion is fundamental. It's fundamental. Yes. And our first pilot in this Net Zero Accelerator are India, Thailand, Egypt, and countries in Latin America, Colombia, on Brazil. So really, this is you guys. The role you have as Indian is fundamental in that. So really, it's important that these things is happening in your country first and foremost.
Yes, fully on board, Thomas. As you know that in our areas, right? Yes. So first of all, I think I really appreciate Thomas and Antonio for giving a lot of insight. I really thoroughly enjoyed this session, and really all the audience who was participating here, thanks for your presence. And I'm sure you have taken a number of takeaways from the sessions, and it might have given you some kind of a insight what is happening around things about net zero. Net zero is not just a word. This is reality is going to happen, or reality is happening already in the area. And the GCC is playing a very important role, and Holcim as a what you call the world leader in the cement industry, also playing a very key important role for driving and supporting the whole industry in our net zero journey. So with these words, thank you very much, Thomas and Antonio, for your time. It's a great pleasure talking to you both. And Kanan, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for conducting the session, and thank you all the speakers for the presentation and insights. There are a few announcements for participants. Tomorrow, all the 3 sessions are happening parallelly at 9:30 hours. It's starting. 2 exclusive sessions on cement and 1 exclusive session on CPP is happening tomorrow. And the participants can visit the virtual exposition where the technology providers are sharing their latest advancements in different areas in cement and CPP. And also the participants can visit the library to download the latest publications which has been developed by CII. So I request the participants to use all the services. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all. We can close the session, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Thomas, Antonio, and have a wonderful day left over. And talk to you soon and meet you in person soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.